You are now listening to the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Welcome all and welcome back into the Insight NFL Podcast. Tuesday, 23rd of December. We can smell the Christmas ham and the Christmas beers already as is. Kicking off just a couple of days into that, we've just gone through a massive week of week 16. Semi-finals, matchups in traditional fantasy. I was doing some numbers previously. Not too happy with heading into next week, but anyhow, that's all the fun of it. We've got SuperCoach closing out as well for week 16. We're going to be mix matching a whole heap into the one episode tonight. But before we get into that and lead into everything that we have up on the menu for tonight, Secko, how are you feeling? Week 16 is all but done. We were treated with a very high-scoring game to close things out with the Colts and the 49ers. Hopefully that didn't interfere with any of your matchups for this week.
I didn't. Luckily, the damage was done, and in a couple of matches, the win was put away earlier. No repercussions, so I could sit back and watch. Phil Rivers won the clock back and looked like a competent quarterback, which is good for all my Jonathan Taylor shares, which is still alive, thankfully.
Thankfully, I imagine not a lot of people would be sharing that same opinion with how JT's been the last few weeks. But Philip Rivers, old man 44, getting it done. Mav, week 16. I just see you've been knocked out of the Creators League, but how are you feeling as we head into Championship week?
Yeah, not too bad. There's not many. Actually, I think there's only one final I'm actually in. So, plenty of playoff appearances, but not a lot of success through. Two. Sorry, I've got two finals coming up. Sorry. So not a hell of a lot of success coming in. Unfortunately, I've got pipped in a few leagues at the end. Some leagues right at the end of the last game. So that's the nature of the beast, and we move forward. So hopefully we can go 2 for 2 in the finals and go from there.
Fingers crossed. We're hoping for some shinier days ahead after this week. It's been some absolute carnage. I'm thankful for the amount of volume I played in this year. I would not be in any championship matchups, but quantity is king. Cash is king. On tonight, we will be getting through the Heroes and Heartbreakers as we review the week 16 through a SuperCoach lens, going through all those guys. We'll have a little bit of trade talk as we get into it. But as this is our only show, we'll just really be keeping it to that reviewing of the week. We've got a massive injury report to get through from the carnage that took place this week as well, which will split things up. And then we'll dive into our game-by-game breakdown to help answer all your starts and sit questions through a traditional fantasy lens for your championship week, if you were lucky enough to make it there. So, guys, without further ado, let's get into our heroes for the week. And I think for SuperCoach as a whole, pretty low scoring. Not just saying that because I didn't crack 500 myself, but it just didn't feel like there was many big scores. All the big quarterbacks let us down in big spots. The running backs were okay. The wide receivers were okay. Trey McBride absolutely hurt us, but we'll get to the heartbreakers later on. But starting off with the quarterback position, Brock Purdy in today's game, 63 points, just going absolutely ballistic in a plus matchup versus Indy at home. I think he threw for 4 touchdowns there in the death. George Kittle did get ruled out at the back end of this game as well. 5 touchdowns, 1 mistake. 63 points. You absolutely love to see it. CMC getting 2 receiving touchdowns for himself. How'd you feel about this one, Secko and Brock Purdy? I mean, they've got the Bears next week. Let me just double check who they have the week after that. I think it might be someone pretty weak. Oh, they've got Seattle. So yeah, it's a bit harder, but by week 18, Seattle, they could have already locked up the bye at this point. They could just be coasting. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But this one from Brock Purdy and the 49ers, do you think he can carry this to some extent into the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, he can. I sort of said it for a couple of weeks, and he's got everyone back. No Pearsall, but it doesn't really hurt much because Juwan Jennings did nothing for the first half and then popped up and gave Mav some hope in the Creators. But yeah, he's back to his full self, and with hopefully Kittle's all right. He's a watch. Might catch that later in the injuries, but yeah, he just seems to get it done. He's got, the Colts pass rush was not any good today, and he was given plenty of time. And with time, he's good enough to find his guys, and he's very accurate. He's always been a very accurate passer, so he's not getting a lot of pressure. He should be good. But 63 is obviously inflated with his 5 touchdowns.
And Trevor Lawrence, he just keeps stringing back-to-back great performances. He's got 62 points in fantasy for this week. Just pulling up his stat line against a tough Denver Broncos defense. I was put to the sword by Trevor Lawrence and Cole Pitts combo in one of my leagues. I was a heavy favorite in. You'll love to see that. But T-Law, 279 through the air, 3 touchdowns. Also gave you 1 on the ground as well. He has just been so dominant these past 5 weeks. I mean, looking at it through traditional fantasy, 26 points, 25, 23, 54, then 37 or 62 in SuperCoach. The Jags, they have just surprised everybody. Trevor Lawrence has really flipped a switch in his 5th year in the league. Liam Cohen, Mr. Duval himself, has just unlocked everything for this guy and this team. How do you feel about these guys or the Jags as a whole, especially Trevor Lawrence as we close the year out?
Yeah, I did have Trevor Lawrence as a sneaky little pod on last week's show to trade in possibly. And I did question the Broncos matchup. And he balled out against them. So the next 2 matchups he's got, the Colts and the Titans. He may not be required to play in that Titans game. They've secured playoffs, but he's been balling. Those 2 matchups he does play, they should put points on the board. So if you've got him in anywhere, shape or form at the moment, you've probably got to be pretty happy with that.
For sure. And a couple of honorable mentions in the quarterbacks that have performed. Stafford, 61 points, Herbert, 60, Burrow, 57, and May, 49. So not heavily owned players by any measure there in the honorable mentions. But Secko, out of this grouping here, any guy that you really want to highlight that you like for the remainder of the year? I mean, Burrow, I know they do have the Cards this week. I think May has the Jets off the top of my head. But, yeah, how do you feel about the rest of these guys?
Look, yeah, Stafford showed that even with Devontae out, he's not lacking much because Puka's so good. He even managed to find a few randoms. Mumfield, no one's heard of him before. He popped up in the Devontae Adams role for a couple of key catches. But yeah, he's got the Falcons and the Cardinals. Like that's really a dream. They might both be Kyron and Blake Corum games. But yeah, I think he's the one to highlight. Herbert as well. He said he's fully back, his hands back to normal. He can grip the ball. He can take snaps easily. So all good there. In a week that was poor for some of the high-owned quarterbacks, there was plenty of guys who got home. And some of them, like Drake May, if you held through the bye, rewarded you as opposed to Josh Allen. And we won't talk about the other guy.
We won't. He shall not be named just yet. Running back heroes for this week, Ashton Genty. Who could have seen this coming after 2 very lackluster performances and up against probably the number 1 defense on the year, up against the Texans? 24 carries, 128 yards, a touchdown, and 1 for 60 through the air with another score, equating to 62 SuperCoach points. Mav, how do you feel about Genty in here? I mean, Geno Smith was back in. He was a late inclusion into this game. He has not done anything with Genty for all up to this point, but did you catch much of this game? How do you feel about Genty moving forward? They do have the Giants into Kansas City to close out the year.
Mate, I actually think that Genty's had a fantastic year despite what he has seen in that squad. The offensive line is horrible. The QB play has been questionable for the majority of the year, and he's actually turned out a pretty good stat line. If they can beef up that offensive line at the end of the year or next year, should I say, he could be a top candidate for a top running back position. I think that there's true home run ability. As long as he can, as long as they can create holes for him, I think he should be able to find them. So, look, love Genty. Should be heavily mentioned next year still in fantasy drafts. And I loved his celebration and he's on his first touchdown. That's what it's all about, that first celebration. And he gave us a little jig and a jive. It was awesome.
You love to see a little jig and a jive from Ashton Genty there. Hopefully this team just invests heavily in the O-line next year because, that O-line was a massive problem for this one here. And Secko, who have you got?
I'm pretty pumped. I'm pretty pumped just for normal fantasy next year. Mav touched on it a bit there, but I feel like the perception is way worse than what he actually has given us in a putrid situation. So it'll be a lot cheaper for us next year in fantasy drafts than he was this year, and maybe even lower. He's got 1,150 all-purpose yards, 10 touchdowns on the year. I mean, for a rookie, that's pretty great. It just happens that he had such high lofty expectations from everyone. Obviously, for SuperCoach, we got him. He made a lot of money. We thought he could have made more, but he's been great. This is one out, though. Against the Texans, no one could have ever guessed that he'd have probably north of 30, let alone 60 SuperCoaches. So it's just one of those ones that happens from time to time.
I mean, it's close to Christmas. It's the giving season. I think they just wanted to give the young rook a little bit of love and let go on that one. The second running back coming up of our heroes, Chase Brown, back-to-back weeks of 61 points here. Yeah, the hype of Chase Brown preseason, the fall off at the start of the season when Joe Burrow went down to now Joe Burrow coming back, Joe Flacco popping in. He's just been on an all-time tear. Back-to-back weeks of 61. He had 3 touchdowns again in this game up against Miami. The Cardinals next week, going to be hard. Hard to see that if he doesn't score a touchdown in that matchup. I mean, the Cardinals are just woeful at this point of the year. But Mav, Chase Brown for you. Could you have seen this coming? And I mean, could he be a nice little sneaky play down the stretch? He's at 17.6 million, so his price is well and truly up there. But how do you feel about Chase Brown moving forward?
Look, in a SuperCoach lens, probably not. There's probably no real purpose to bring him in. On a traditional fantasy side, I mean, I had a trade offer. I think it was week 5, week 6, whatever it was. Whenever James Conner went down, it was trade Benson for Chase Brown. And that was when Chase Brown was really cold. There was no Burrow. It was just real murky. It was Browning still in the house. It was just really, really ugly. And trade Benson's on that upward trajectory. He was looking like he could be a top, maybe 15 running back at the time he was starting. And I denied the trade. I was like, I'm not taking Chase Brown. I'm not interested. And now you look back at it and go, maybe you just take the talent that you know of, maybe not the talent that you think he might end up. But that is fantasy, though. I mean, that you've seen so many examples of it going pear-shaped and thinking that you might be getting a player coming in that's probably better than the player that you're going. But also the opposite can happen too. So good thing to learn, boys, is maybe just take the guy that you know is probably better than the other player.
And hope and hold on tight that Jake Browning will be at the door in a couple of weeks and brighter days are ahead. Who could have seen it coming? We just couldn't have. Joe Burrow coming back. He's the first quarterback in history after coming back from turf toe surgery mid-year to return that season. So you just can't. And he's been balling. So you just can't pick it. But these next few guys of running backs, you can pick. They're just week in, week out. CMC, 58 points. Bijan, 52. And James Cook, 51 to close out the running backs here. Secko, how do you feel about all of these guys? I mean, James Cook, I think they've got Philly up this week, so it'll be dependent on if Jalen Carter can play. But, I mean, at home, in a cold and windy day, you think that they just keep on rolling. And the other 2 guys have just been like butter these last few weeks.
Cook's been super impressive. We've highlighted him sort of throughout as a guy who's trended up into that sort of top 5, 6 conversation a lot. So I'm not surprised at all. He gets a lot of the work. They have no receivers in any capacity, so a lot of the work has to go through him. Impressive to do it against Cleveland in Cleveland as well. So yeah, he's a stud. And then obviously we're talking studs. CMC was a popular captaincy choice today. Made a lot of teams come from pretty average to okay in the end. And Bijan's sort of doing it regardless of who he's playing and who's under center and who's in the team, who's out of the team. So these sort of cream rising to the top has been great late in the season for us.
I mean, looking at Bijan, Cole Pitts comes up, the whole team comes up. But anyway, we'll get onto that later on. Wide receivers, Puka Nacua, 81 points, just going absolutely nuclear to kick off the week up against the Seahawks in a tough loss. Secko, I didn't want to have to bring that up, but man, it was a good game to watch. Did not expect that from the Seahawks down the stretch and Sam Darnold. A few questionable calls, I guess you could say, down the back end, but that's a different story. Chris Olave, 63 points on the week. That's probably the big thing to bring up with Tyler Shuck under center. I really think Tyler Shuck's played himself into a starting role. They keep winning games. They're going to be outside of those top draft picks next year. They could easily just hammer into more skill position players. 10 for 148 and 2 scores on 16 targets. Mav, how do you feel about Chris Olave as a potential sneaky guy to trade in? He's at 15 million at the moment. They've got Tennessee and then Atlanta to close out the year.
Yeah, I think he would be. We've probably, ever probably since Shaheed got traded out, he's been a genuine wide receiver one. All the balls going through to him. His targets have gone up. The usage has gone up. The scores have obviously gone up as a result of. And obviously Shuck coming in to replace, who was their QB at the start of the year again? I can't remember his name.
Rattler.
Rattler. Yeah. So that's obviously been a big improvement too. So lots of ticks there for Shuck and Olave. And yeah, you're right. I think they've got something to work with there with Shuck. There's something to work with. They can go and get another wide receiver, beef up the offensive line a little bit, get some defensive players to go in. Just the overall dynamics of the team. They've got their QB at least for the next 12 months, and they can invest elsewhere for now. And hopefully, Shuck can keep performing because I think Olave at the moment is definitely top 5, top 6, top 7 receiver, worst case scenario. So, there's plenty of ball going his way, and the matchups for the remainder of the year are very favourable too. So, I'm not worried about Olave at all.
Another one that we really just couldn't see coming. There was so many question marks about him heading into the season. Himself, he came out at a recent press conference saying that he was contemplating retirement with all those concussions. But great to see. Currently, the wide receiver 6 in traditional fantasy, over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns on 92 catches. You love it. Honorable mentions for the wide receiver positions before we move on. Pickens with 45, finally picking his attitude back up together and producing for us. JSN with 39, very solid, and Jamar Chase with 30. Tight ends. George Kittle going off in today's game for 42 points, despite dealing with that injury. I think he missed at least a quarter at the back end there, dealing with an ankle. Just so dominant. It looked like he was just going to keep on going too. Things were really opening up for Kittle here. Secko, if he does miss next week, it's hard at this point of the year. Myself, I've got one trade. I've got Lamar who could miss. I've got Kittle that could miss. I think there was another one as well that could miss out of the top guys. There's just too many players that could miss. You really hope that you can hang on to some trades at this point of the year. But what are you looking to do with Kittle? Are you just hoping that you have some nice bench cover to kind of slot in for this week, or how do you feel about him being a chance to play in week 17?
It's hard to know whether you're going to play. There's really no one to trade into in tight end. I don't like anyone there. Hope he plays. Yeah, if you've got one trade left, you may have to use that straight away. Hopefully you've got either a running back 5 who's reliable enough in a pinch in the last week and go into your flex if you get another injury. But hopefully your bench covers enough that you can cover the flex guy now if he's out with a back. If you haven't got him, happy days. But Kittle's a watch. I think they need to win games. They're playing Chicago on the road. He's going to want to go. I think he plays.
Wait and see. Fingers crossed that he can. Howard Fannin Jr. stepped up in what seemed to be a tough matchup against the Bills, but 34 points. He's just number 1 target by an absolute country mile on that Browns team. And Cole Pitts putting up 30 points as well. Mav, is Cole Pitts going to be in your starting team next season?
No. Negatory. I'm not even too sure if he'll even be on the Falcons roster. I think he's a free agent end of the year. So I believe he's got no contract and available. He might be restricted, but I think probably will be restricted, but still would be available on the open market. So no, I don't think he will be. Hopefully we get some better tight ends coming into next year. Hopefully some more consistent tight ends. Maybe Tyler Warren takes another step in his career. We'll see. But maybe get Hawkinson back, maybe. We'll see what happens. But I doubt it. You're right. I doubt it. Maybe Laporta comes back in. There's a lot of tight ends there. Maybe that could come back in. So I don't think Kyle Pitts is going to be a stable option moving forward. But in the short term, without Drake London, I suppose I know he came back in this week, but without Drake London, has been fantastic.
He's been lights out. We'll see. He keeps proving people wrong.
Kyle Pitts to Kansas City just to slip right into the 87 and nothing changes in Kansas City.
Well, that'd be
tight end 1 next year.
What happened?
He could also go to bloody Washington.
No, they've got Ben Sinnott, mate. He's there. He's gonna take over. Trey McBride arc next year.
Just saying.
It could happen. It's gonna be a great off season. I can't wait to when we live stream the draft. actually, when it comes to the back end of April. That's going to be a great time going over those 2 days. Kickers and defenses in the Heroes. We'll tie both of these guys in together. Charlie Smythe plays for the Saints, put up 40 points this week. I know, Secko, when I was looking through, I was like, who the hell is Charlie Smythe? But
never ever heard of him.
I mean, the Saints have just been absolutely performing. Chad Ryland for the Cardinals, 34 points. What's going on here? Who's got Chad Ryland? Definitely none of us.
Touchdowns. And that's the thing.
It's just
4 touchdowns.
It's unbelievable at this point of the year. That's why he's just trying to flip flop with kickers week in, week out. You're just gonna pull your hair out. There's just no point there. And defenses again. How can you pick this? The Saints kicker and the defense are the top scorers of the week. Defense put up 38 points up against the Jets. Thank you, Brady Cook. And the Giants are closing out with 30 points as well on that defense, which again, you just can't pick it whatsoever. Secko, can you make sense of any of the kickers or defenses top scoring for this week?
Can Ryland is because Brissett turned into a pumpkin, couldn't get the ball past the 25, so he kicked a bunch of them. I've never heard of Charlie Smythe, so I can't talk to that. It was an indoor game. That helps against a horrible defense. Lots of opportunities. Saints D played against Brady Cook. You said that. And the Giants played against Max Brosma for 2.5 quarters. That'll do it to any defense. So who are the Vikings playing next week? Load them up.
Fantastic time of the year.
You just absolutely have to love it. They're playing the Lions too against Brosma
load them up.
On Boxing Day morning for us here or Christmas. Gee, I hope nobody's bought tickets to go see those games on Christmas because you've just been absolutely robbed without the quarterbacks that are going to be starting. But that closes out the Heroes for week 16. Heading into the Heartbreakers, this one really, really does hurt my heart watching this game live. But starting off with quarterback, Lamar Jackson putting up 9 points. He was injured in the second quarter, took a knee to the back, to the ribs area. I don't know. It looked like it kind of hit him right on the pad. I was like, oh, okay, it's going to be a bit of a stinger. Ruled out. Didn't return in a must-win game against the Patriots that they were winning in. That was such a weird game as a whole. I can't believe that they didn't give Derrick Henry the ball for the final 10 minutes or so when they were up at that point. But Mav, Lamar Jackson for you, 9 points. I'm looking at him in my team. He's a low cost. I'm hoping that he plays next week, but how do you feel about him moving forward? I mean, this game, it's just everything was up in the air. He's just had a absolutely horrid-filled season of injuries this year.
Yeah, I felt like he's up and down. He's been up and down for the most part of the year when he's been playing. I felt like he was cursed, to be honest with you. It's just that's how I felt. So when I had my trade last week, I had the option to go to Lamar. Obviously, being in the home zone, I had the option to go to Lamar, and I decided to go to Drake May. So it's sort of where I've been with Lamar for the majority of the year. I mean, look, sure, in spurts he looked great, but again, it's just too unreliable. He's been banged up. He's been banged up for the whole year, so it's been very hard to trust and invest in him, knowing that that's just what it's been. And the offense has been pretty average for the most part too. Even Derrick Henry. I mean, I know he's sort of getting punished on the way, but at the same time, I don't think he's been fantastic either. He hasn't been the Derrick Henry that we know of, and I think Father Time is slowly catching up to him, very slowly. He'll still probably go around again next year, but it could be the real drop-off year. Look, you can take a risk in him if you want in fantasy drafts next year with Derrick Henry. He might be at a nice little cost. He might be like a 3rd or 4th rounder, and you may get value. You may, but again, I don't think you're going to get prime Derrick Henry either. So we'll see.
It's weird with Derrick Henry. He's got 12 touchdowns on the year, 1,200 yards, but it just doesn't feel like the Derrick Henry of old with this Ravens team that probably won't make the playoffs this year, which is very, very shocking. Josh Allen giving us 13 points. Everybody heard Josh Allen, so you're not really hindered by much with this one. Just a game where James Cook just took over and he just gave them everything they needed on the ground against a poor Cleveland Browns. Jackson Dart, Secko. I didn't catch too much of this game. Super weird that he only threw the ball. I think he only threw the ball for 13 times or something like that. So how do you feel about Jackson Dart moving forward? Is this just an absolute head crash by the coaching decisions in this game, or was there anything that you didn't like that you saw from Jackson Dart?
It's a blip. It's a one-off. They didn't have a pass play called until I think the last 2 minutes of the second quarter. They started the game with 16 straight runs. That's play calling. You can't do anything with that as a quarterback. There weren't even RPOs. Like, they weren't option plays that Jart decided to hand the ball off. They were just designed as straight running back carries, 16 in a row. And that took them to the second quarter, late in the second quarter, because they were getting nothing out of it. Surprise, surprise. So weird from the coaching. One off, he gets the Raiders next week, Cowboys the week after. You have Dart, don't stress. It's one bad week. Very, very likely he'll be back to his 40-plus ways the next 2 weeks.
Coaching, you got to love it. You got to love it. The things that you don't love whatsoever, dealing with injuries mid-game. Trevion Henderson up against the Ravens looked to be winding up, and then concussion, took an injury. You could see it was pretty nasty. He kind of got back up and he couldn't really walk properly there. On a short turnaround after playing Sunday Night Football, you'd expect that he probably misses next week. Mav, how do you feel about Henderson in this one? How do you like his chances for next week? And if he doesn't, Ramondre Stevenson might come into play. I was picking him up on waivers a little bit beforehand, but how do you feel about this outlook for the Patriots?
Well, he probably won't be required. They play the Jets next week, so regardless, there's no point even using him. May as well sit him for a week, even maybe 2 weeks. They're probably going to lock up number 1 seed, which is crazy to say, but they probably will. Jets into.
I think it's Miami. It's someone weak.
Yes, it is Miami. Yeah. So they'll win both games, and imagine, pretty comfortably too. They won't be tested. So I don't think we'll see Trevion for the rest of the year. Well, regular season, should I say. And then they got the bye, so he might not play for 3 weeks. So that's fine. He's been fantastic in the second half of the year. Really shown his talent, his upside, his ability as a receiver, as a runner, just everything. Just watch him early on next year. I think he'll have a very high price tag, both in SuperCoach and in your drafts. I think he'll be sitting around your second round, third round. I think that's where he'll be sitting personally. And look, yeah, sure, you'll be drafting on ceiling, but again, ability as well. We expect him to get better and better as his career goes along. So, the ability is just definitely there in an offense that loves to move the ball. So, really interested to see how he goes moving forward in his career.
Ticks a lot of boxes: talent, juice, pass catches, and an ascending offense linked to an absolute stud at quarterback. You'd love to see it. Very positive outlook moving forward. Javonte Williams giving us 9 points against the tough matchups against the Chargers. Couldn't really do too much. Josh Jacobs, 7 points in this game against the Bears. Jordan Love did go down with concussion. We'll get to that later on. But Secko, with Josh Jacobs, there was comments coming out that this was more a disciplinary action and why he didn't see too many carries down the back end due to that fumble. Do you kind of think that's a load of shit, or is it more so that knee and kind of ankle injury that he's been dealing with the last few weeks?
Probably a combination. If that's true, it's coaching again. LaFleur's cost himself a game. Packers deserve to miss the playoffs because of it now. Hope they do. It's pathetic coaching, sitting a guy down for fumbling when he's your clear best player, especially when your quarterback's out. You've got a guy who's bounced around the league a little bit. So, yeah, it looked like a very clear decision, though. Like, they didn't put him on. They put Chris Brooks on in relief of Emmanuel Wilson for numerous drives as well. So, strange one. I think it was probably a bit of knee rest, but I also think LaFleur probably thought at the time they were not going to lose that game, which is a bit of arrogance seeping in. He's always been a super arrogant coach, in my opinion. And that's a bit of karma hitting him from a division team that's now a game and a half clear of him, and they're going to have to try and win the hard way now.
I think Ben Johnson, the head coach on the other side, shares those views. Secko, you see a clip of those two guys just quickly brushing each other off. And on to the next game. But Bears on top of the moment. You couldn't have picked it whatsoever. You absolutely love the NFL any given year. Wide receivers that let us down this week. There was a lot. Amon-Ra St. Brown with 14 points was probably the most surprising in a game where they had to play catch-up in against a weak Steelers secondary. Emeka Egbuka giving us 9 points. You hate to see it. CeeDee Lamb, 16 points. So George Pickens kind of had that boom week there. Nico Collins with 15 points and Drake London with 8 points here. All in all, there's a lot of key players that did let us down. But Mav, who really sticks out to you as a real big impact for week 16 and someone that we can hope bounces back for next week?
I'll give you one straight off the bat. You didn't even name him, didn't play this week. And it's rough that I am mentioning someone that hasn't played it. So it has let us down. But Rasheed Rice, to be honest with you, is one that I'd be looking to move out of my team. I've got one trade left. I think I might use it on Rice. The facts are that Gardner Minshew is out with an ACL. He is no longer going to be playing. So they get their third string QB in, and that is going to hamper Rasheed Rice. It really is. So that is a heartbreaker if I've ever seen one. So unfortunately, it's rough probably using your last trade to trade out a guy who's probably going to come back in, or maybe they just want to shut him down. Who knows? But that is a heartbreaker for me. I can't trust a third string QB flicking a ball to a premium player. I'll use that trade. I'll probably try and get someone in that can actually provide something, and then hope there's no other injuries.
How do you feel about this one, Secko? I mean, Rasheed Rice is not on the list, but you like that last little deep insight outside the box. I'm looking at Rasheed Rice to trade off too, but there's just so many injuries this week. But outside of him, and who else out of these wide receivers do you feel might let us down this week or potentially bounce back?
Yeah, well, it's probably Amon-Ra St. Brown, which is going to sound really weird, but they're done. The lines are done, and I'm hopeful that Dan Campbell has them playing proud enough to be a division rival and do something away from home. But I'm actually quite concerned that game is very, very average from the Lions, and I've got an Amon-Ra Jared Goff stack in one of my championship matches next week, and I'm not looking forward to tilting for 7 straight days on whether I do that, make that play or not, because I'm really concerned about what happens in Detroit, given that they're done and they'll be firmly looking to next season. I wouldn't worry about CD, wouldn't worry about Nico. They were both weird. London, first game back, he'll probably take over again, and Nick Buka shouldn't be in teams, even though he was in mine this week.
Tight end heartbreakers for this week. Travis Kelce with 2 points. Could not do anything with Minshew for a little bit, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce the third stringer that came in relief, but did not perform too well against the Titans. This could be 2 games left of Kelce's career, and he's done and dusted, so wait and see how that plays out. Taylor Swift will be happy. Tyler Warren giving us 9 points. He let down Phillip Rivers in a big way. Not one of the plays today. Didn't stop at the end of his route, kind of turned early, and it was just a free look for the linebacker to swoop in and take a pick 6 to the house. But Trey McBride, the biggest letdown of the week, giving us 9 points. They do have the Bengals up this week, so I think the way he bounces back, he could maybe even give us 90 points when it's all said and done. But Mav, Trey McBride with 9. I think Elijah Higgins in this game gave us like 80 receiving yards or something like that off the top of my head. I did not watch too much in this one, but I will just pull up the lines here. Elijah Higgins, 7 for 91, and Trey McBride was 4 for 27 against the Falcons. How did you see that one play out?
A bit ridiculous, isn't it? You look at it and go, how does this happen? But it does Happen. Unfortunately, you best players sometimes just don't really get involved. They might get double teamed. They might scheme them out. The defense might just try and find someone else to beat you, and it is what it is. Happens all the time. Just on that, Travis Kelce, the third string QB of the Chiefs. Sorry, just go back a step. He's 28 years of age. Okay, as 28, and he's played 1 game since his last game on the weekend. So, yeah.
Going to be tough. Going to be tough next week for any Chiefs pass catchers there. Moving on, kickers. Jason Myers, 4 points, absolutely letting us down after he's been lights out the last few weeks. Brennan Aubrey giving 10 points. It's okay, but if you invest that much in a kicker, you really hope for more. The DSTs that let us down. The Broncos putting up 8 points against the Jags. Could just not stop anything. And the Packers putting up a big fat donut in their loss to the Bears. Anything to take away from you on this one, Secko?
No, I was just looking up the stats of that Kansas City guy. That one game he had no attempts, no completions, 1 sack for -5 yards. So he came on for 1 play and got sacked. I think that's his contribution to football before today, or yesterday, wherever it was. Look, as we said, kickers and DSTs have been wonky all year. I think we've learned a lot for next year if we haven't already. After 17 weeks or 16 weeks, I think we just need to have a good look at ourselves on what to do next year, and don't load up. Just pick 2 reasonable defenses you think are on the up, and 2 kickers that have different buys, and hope one doesn't get injured, and you can just ride them out because, like Jason Myers, 4 points, Aubrey 10 points. They're talking about how great they both are and how equivalent they are to a wide receiver 1 on the season, and all that nonsense. It's really just a bit of pot luck.
It is. It is. But they do mean something in the overall aspect, though. That's the scary part.
They're not worth putting in any sort of analysis, strategy, thinking, planning. Just dartboard it. Have 32 bloody darts, and then just hit one, right? Just because.
Well, you saw it this week. I mean, that Saints kicker was the best kicker of the week. So, I mean, look, how do you know? So, at the end of the day, you've got to have some reliability in those players. I mean, I'm not saying to invest top dollar in them, obviously, but you've got to have some reliability. I mean, I was at the start of the year, man. I went really bottom dollar in a lot of ways with kickers and just defensive teams to try and stack up running backs and receivers and stuff like that. And then, to be honest, it didn't really work. So, we'll look at another strategy next year where maybe it's mid-price instead.
Well, see, I'm still rolling off with rookie Tyler Loop. He's just, giving us the goods this year. Before we get into the injuries, after we've just closed out Heroes and Heartbreakers through SuperCoach lens, we do have a couple of questions in here from New World Odor on a couple start sits for the week. We'll just quickly crunch them out. Thanks for the comments, mate. Fellas, start Cardinals or the Pats defense? I'll take care of this one. The Cardinals are playing the Bengals, and the Pats are playing the Jets. So definitely start the Patriots. That'll be my start this week in that regard. And throwing to you, Secko, London or Jefferson for this week? Jefferson up against Detroit on Christmas, or we have London up against the Rams in the final game of the week?
I think a week back from the injury, I think London has to be the choice here. They just look a bit better. Rams are traveling cross country. We saw what happened when they played against Carolina. Tedroa went all right. They don't travel great. They're off a bad loss as well. Jefferson had one okay game, but he gets Max Brosnan for the whole game this time. I just don't think you want to be. We've been avoiding him all year. He's had one okay game. It's not the time to buy back in on Justin, unfortunately. Drake is from my easy call.
If McCarthy's the wet sock, what's Brosma? He's the wet shoe.
No, he's the sock with holes in
it.
You're just drowning at that point. You move on.
You're throwing it out the bin.
But yeah, that's the neighbour's problem straight over the fence. Moving on, we do have some injuries coming up here. Let's drive straight into that. George Kittle from the top. He was dealing with that ankle injury in a short turnaround. I actually do play on Sunday Night Football next week, so there is a bit of time. Not as long as we'd like to hope, but hopefully he's okay to go. I did see he was doing a couple of line scrimmage kind of moves on the sideline. He looked to be moving okay. Could have just been a head coach decision to hold him out because they were in a prime spot for that game. Jordan Love in concussion protocol. They are playing pretty early on that Sunday, so it might be hard for him to get a leg up in this one. Malik Willis, the second quarterback, is also dealing with some injuries, a bit banged up, so I have to wait and see how that plays out. They are up against Baltimore as well in Lambeau, so that's going to be a very, very interesting game if it's the third string quarterback for the Packers. Lamar Jackson also in that game for next week. He is dealing with that ribs injury that took place, missed the whole second half in a must-win game. Again, who knows what they're going to do next week with the Ravens. Secko, how do you feel about Jordan Love and Lamar? Do you think they're outside chances to win or to play? I mean, both teams really do need to win probably the Packers more so than the Ravens because, their chances to come back in after the Steelers getting up is pretty low. But how do you feel about this quarterback pairing for next week?
I think Lamar definitely plays because they are still alive. If they win out, they've got the Steelers as well. They win out, they're a chance of making it still. So I think he'll play. It's ribs. You can just get a painkiller. You get some padding. You play. Jordan Love's obviously a protocol thing, so we'll find out how he's progressing. They did play on Saturday, and I think they're playing on Sunday this week. So, or are they playing one of the Christmas games? No, they're playing Sunday. So, he might clear. It's hard to know how they progress it. I don't know how they do it, but if he doesn't, I think Malik Willis is more likely to play than not if he has to. So they'll be okay. He looks pretty good, but probably doesn't help anyone you've got from that team with Malik Willis outside of himself. But see what happens there. But I'm expecting Lamar to play.
Also, keep an eye out on Josh Jacobs for that game too. I know they said due to disciplinary actions, but just he has been dealing with that knee ankle injury for the past couple of weeks. So make sure to keep in touch. Gardner Minshew dealing with that knee injury we saw, and it's Chris Alodikun. He came in relief as a third stringer quarterback, so wait and see. He'll probably be getting the nod again next week. JJ McCarthy and Jordan Mason for the Vikings. Mason dealing with an ankle injury. He left the game early, did not practice to open this week. And JJ McCarthy dealing with that hand injury. Mav, how do you feel about him? Do you think it is going to be Brosma in the game back up against Detroit, or do you think Wet Socky is going to get tough for us here and play this one out?
It's hard to say. We'll have to see the practice reports, but looks like he probably will miss. McCarthy seems like he's pretty soft for the most part. Can't stay healthy. One's basically injured throughout his whole 2 years in the league. Always seems like there's always problems there, so looks like he'll probably miss. But again, watch the practice reports and see what actually happens.
A lot to tune in on this week. Make sure to keep an eye on, especially over Christmas. If you're talking to your in-laws, it's always a good time just to whip the phone out and check practice reports for this week. Travion Henderson dealing with a concussion. We spoke on him earlier. Probably won't play this week. So look elsewhere. Quinshon Judkins, absolutely hate to see this one. Dislocated ankle and a fractured fibula. They think it's just a slight fracture. Still not good by any means. Well and truly off for the remainder of the season. Could be a chance to start in week 1. But Secko, how do you feel about him? I know he was emerging as a really good rookie option coming through, dealing with that suspension and those DV cases at the start of the year. Came good, then performed. That performance kind of definitely decreased with how the Browns offense as a whole was playing. O-line was banged up, but now this injury, throwing it into the mix. How do you feel about him for the future, probably through a dynasty lens of all things?
Yeah, absolutely. And redraft next year, but fractured legs, like they're not easy to come back from and be, as a running back and be 100%. I don't think there's any chance he's 100% in round 1, week 1. He might play, but he might not. Yeah, I don't think he'll be great. Serious question: Did I miss the news that DV suspension went away, or did the league come out and say nothing to answer for, or did it just not get spoken about?
Cleared.
And then he got cleared, did he? Okay, I must have missed it because I was always waiting for it, and then by that stage he was rostered everywhere, and I had no chance of getting him because he was still playing well. But yeah, I'm worried about him starting next year. If I'm really honest, I think he could be one of those guys who's an 8th or 9th rounder in drafts that could come on. If it's as bad as I think it's going to be, where he's still sort of on what do you call it, PUP, leading into the season, or IR, he could be a good stash candidate for later.
I think it's a similar injury to Cam Scatterbo that we saw too, right? Probably not as intense, but it was that same dislocated ankle. Definitely later on. So we'll wait and see how those two rookies can come back in next year. And Pat Bryant, I actually missed this play, but apparently he took a hit that was just that nasty that he was carted from the field, concussion, neck, back, everything kind of happening there for the Broncos. So it's sad to see a rookie wide receiver or any wide receiver really take those hits, but hopefully he's back on deck in a couple of weeks. But the Broncos, they need some more help in that wide receiver room. But that really closes out the injuries from what we have so far. Again, it is only the first day after the week, so we're kind of dealing with everything that we have now. But make sure to stay in tuned over Christmas period as we look into the Christmas slate. And we will jump straight into the Week 17 breakdown right after this.
Let's preview the games for the week ahead. It's time for Game Talk.
So that Christmas slate we've been dealt with on paper looks like some absolutely magnificent games. That has gone absolutely out the window with all the injuries that we have been copping the last few weeks. It will be taking place Boxing Day morning for us here in Australia. Kicking things off, the Cowboys heading to Washington to take on the Commanders. Cowboys are just under a touchdown favorite, and the over-under is still a juicy 50.5 total here. Mav, how do you feel about your Cowboys in this one? On the other side of the ball, Marcus Mariota is an outside chance of playing with that one here, so hopefully he does play and they can give us a bit of a contest. But in terms of a fantasy lens, is there anyone you're looking to start or sit from this game?
Yeah, I mean, look, outside of probably, obviously, Debo at this point in time, if Mariota does play, I'd be looking to start everyone on both sides of the field. This has potential shootout. I mean, the Cowboys defensively have been awful. And look, I know Mariota's not a hell of a lot. He's not much, but he's probably a top backup in the league still. He should put points on the Cowboys fairly easily. If you have McLaurin, smash play. If you got Rodriguez, if you need him to play in the RB2 or in the flex position, that's fine. I wouldn't be too worried, but there should be points available for both parties. So I expect this to be a very high scoring affair if Mariota plays, and you could see a score of 34 to 27, something like that. Fully expect it to be pretty the ball be moving. So it'd be good to watch.
We hope that Mariota plays, and if you are dealing with the Jordan Love injury in your fantasy playoffs, check those waivers, put in a claim for Marcus Mariota, because if he does get cleared, the Cowboys are the number one matchup for opposing quarterbacks who are giving up fantasy points on the year. So you absolutely love that spot. Same thing for you, Secko, in this one. Is there anyone that you're looking to sit outside of Debo Samuel against the Cowboys?
Yeah, like last I heard, Mariota's unlikely to play. So that's a worry. He's DMP today. Yeah, it's going to be Josh Johnson, which just means the Cowboys will get a lot of the ball early. I think it's a smash for all of them. Jonte's fit as well, but Commander side, I think you still start Terry. He's just got quality. Josh Johnson's been around for a long, long time. Played a lot of football, and always seems to pop up and make someone relevant when he gets these little spot starts. And they're always prime time. Funnily enough, I remember Ravens games. He'd pop in for Ninja Lamar. It was always a Sunday night or Monday night. I have to watch a lot of Josh Johnson over my years, but I've done it happily because he always surprises. So it's not as good as Mariota, but he can make someone relevant. But yeah, it's probably not going to get the massive points on the Commander side. Hopefully, it's 40 plus on the Cowboys side, and they'll do it because it's a divisional game.
Let's see if it is Josh Johnson getting a start. Let's hope it's one of those other surprising games where he can support everybody for us in some fantasy goodness in our championship week. Moving on, a few hours later, another divisional matchup. The Lions heading to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. Lions just under a touchdown favorite. Over-under is set at just under 45. Is it going to be Brosma? Is it going to be the wet sock McCarthy? Probably doesn't really matter too much for the receivers, but a lot of questions are posed. And Secko, you spoke about this on the Lions. They are well and truly knocked out of the playoffs. We hope just Dan Campbell and the culture that they put into place, these guys are going to come out firing for us to close things out. Wouldn't have picked it. All these question marks on the Lions heading into championship week. You'd be super reliant on those guys heading in. But how do you feel about this, Mav, this game matchup? Do you have any confidence here that we're going to get some fantasy production?
Yeah, I do. I think that the Lions will still provide some sort of relief. I think Gibbs and Amon-Ra, I still think will be pretty fantasy relevant in this game. I think they'll have a lot of time in possession as well. I don't trust Brosman to be hold the ball for long drives or anything like that. So, obviously Mason's probably not going to play either. So, Jones a bit slow in the the tempo's not his way. So, yeah, look, I truly do believe that the Lions will hold for the ball for the most part of the game. And, yeah, that'll allow, Amon-Ra and Gibbs and probably Monty to have a field day. So I expect them to score pretty large in this game. And despite them being out, it's still a divisional matchup. It's on Christmas Day. They still want to provide something. So I'm not too worried personally.
How about for this game? Another divisional game kicking on later on. Broncos taking on the Chiefs in Kansas City in Arrowhead. They are just about a 2-touchdown favorite, and the over-under is a very measly 36.5 points. Massive question marks around the quarterback for the Chiefs. Going to be having their third stringer in there. Will Rashee Rice play in this one? Will Kelsey do anything in what could be his final or second final game here? Or do the Broncos just roll through? The running backs get all the work and they just make light work of the Chiefs in a divisional matchup. Secko, how do you feel about this game? I mean, that super low over-under. And what if you said this, if this game was a couple of weeks ago, it probably would be sitting at about 50 at this point in time. So definitely night or day in this matchup now with Mahomes out and also Minshew. But how do you feel about the Broncos and the Chiefs?
Yeah, it's gross. 12 implied points is what the Chiefs have got. We saw them against the Titans. They scored 9. That was all Butker. Butgasket has to kick 4 field goals to match their implied totals. I think that's the best option. Rashee Rice, to Mav's point, he's a sit in fantasy. I just don't see a world. He's probably the most likely to do it. And these random third stringers can pop up for a game with a week of game planning. And Rice is the kind of guy, he's close to the line of scrimmage. He does a lot of his work after the catch. So he's probably the most likely to be QB friendly. But I've got him in one of my championships. I don't want to start him. Luckily, I have a pretty stacked core. George Pickens is my wide receiver 3. But yeah, if he was on, he'd be far down the list of startable options for me coming off, the weekend and with the implied total and the quarterback. And obviously, without saying it, no one else in the Chiefs is startable in the slightest. And the Broncos, probably everyone. We saw Cam Ward look pretty good. The Chiefs have nothing to play for, and they showed it very clearly.
We can move on there, heading into the Sunday slate. This is going to be a great game to watch. Probably not a great game for fantasy, but kicking things off in the morning for us, the Texans heading to LA to take on the Chargers in a dome. It's a low 39.5 over-under, but massive implications here for the conference. Just pulling up the standings here in this one here. Chargers 11-4, Texans are 10-5. I mean, the Chargers are still outside chance to clinch the division if somehow the Broncos go down to the Chiefs, but we'll have to wait and see. Mav, how do you feel about this game? We saw the Raiders make light work of the Texans defense, more so being Ashton Genty, sprinkle a little bit of Geno Smith in there. But on the other side of the ball, Herbert, his hand is healed. All the receivers were firing. Marion Hampton looks to be the clear back here. How do you see this game playing out? And is there any must-sits that you think from other side of the ball?
This is a brutal game for fantasy, I reckon, because you're going to see two defenses that are pretty damn good clashing for the most part. So, unfortunately, I feel as though this is going to be a low-scoring game, low-scoring affair, despite us having Herbert playing in this game. The Texans defense do get up for big games. Maybe they let off a bit against the Raiders, but I expect them to be up fit and firing for this one. Look, mate, Lad McConkey for the most part hasn't really been too consistent and reliable, especially in the last few weeks anyway. So if you wanted to sit him, I can understand. If you have better options, I fully understand. If you want to sit Nico, I can understand that too. So look, you can probably play Nico just cause, but if you have better options, I can understand that too. If maybe better matchups, depending on how it is. But but I really do think this is going to be all defensive matchup. I don't really, the run game at the Texans is obviously a bit of a disaster as well. So maybe Stroud has to throw it a bit more. I don't know about Woody Mark if he's around for this week or not. Maybe it's a 1 week absence or not. But yeah, still you'd expect CJ Stroud to be throwing it quite a bit. So it should be a good game. Fully expect it to be an all defensive matchup.
Feel like it could be a little Jaden Higgins spot, as gross as it is in this game, because Nico Collins is going to be getting the treatment in this matchup. How do you feel about this one too, Secko, before we move on to the next game?
Yeah, Mav nailed it on the wide receivers predominantly. Woody Marks, if he's in, good. If he's out, no one. Kamani Vidal, though, picked up a neck injury. It's day to day. This being a slightly earlier game on the Saturday American time, he may not get up. If he's out, Hampton could be an option. We saw what Genty just did against the Texans. It's not necessarily prescriptive for a guy to do it the next week, but at home, I think Hampton getting all the work is definitely a viable play. Pushing up into that sort of higher end wide receiver, running back 2 region for me.
Moving on to the last game on the Sunday slate for us here. The Ravens taking on the Packers in Green Bay. Packers are just under a field goal favorite, and the over-under is set at 40.5. The big question is around those quarterbacks. Will both of those two play? Jordan Love, we're probably a little bit more cautious on dealing with that concussion. Hopefully Lamar can pick up in this game. I mean, on the Ravens side of the ball, if Lamar does play, I think Derrick Henry in a cold game and Lambeau, you'd hate to think that they don't feed him the rock, but they completely missed that in the final spurts of the Patriots game, which is just very questionable coaching there from Harbaugh. Going to be a lot of question marks from him heading into next year, what they're going to do and if his career is still going to be in Baltimore. But Mav, for the Ravens, if Lamar plays, how are you feeling about all these guys in this matchup?
I mean, look, the Packers defense hasn't been too fantastic, to be honest with you, in recent weeks. It was pretty good for the most part against the Bears, to be fair, but I don't really trust them for the most part. The secondary is pretty average. Now no Micah, so they haven't really got enough talent there to put pressure on the QB. I think it was like 90-something pressures that Micah's put on for the QB, and then the next best is 40. So, you know what I mean? That's a big discrepancy right there. But yeah, keep in mind, this game means a lot for both teams. So they've got a lot to play for. See if Jordan Love's play, see if Jacobs is fully fit. I expect he probably would be. But outside of Josh Jacobs, probably Lamar and Derrick Henry is probably not all what else I would really like. If you're chasing points and you need, maybe a Hail Mary, maybe Zay Flowers might come up for you for a big game. But outside of that, and that's just a Hail Mary play. It's not like he's a consistent, but like if you need 20 out of him and you're looking for upside, maybe for a high end game that he can go off, that might be the matchup. But outside of that, good luck.
Yeah, looking to really just be a running back affair in this game. But before we move on to the Monday slate, Secko, I have to ask, Zay Flowers with potentially Lamar against the Packers, or Justin Jefferson with potentially Max Brosma up against the Lions? Which way would you go there?
It's an impossible question. So if Lamar plays, that's be Zay Flowers, because that's just Justin Jefferson's season for me. You know how I feel about him, but has to be.
Agree.
Moving on, the Monday morning slate here in Australia, an absolute banger of a game. This is going to be on Red Zone a whole heap because the defenses are shite. Cardinals taking on the Bengals in Cincinnati. Bengals are a touchdown favorite, and it's the biggest total of the week, 53.5 over under. Just about everybody you can start in this game. I mean, I'm leaning on Jacoby and Trey McBride in one of my finals. Hopefully that tandem can go absolutely ballistic. Wait and see if Marvin Harrison, Michael Wilson, you could probably look to start both of those guys up against the Bengals. And then on the Bengals side of the ball, I mean, T. Higgins is backfiring. Joey B is having fun again. All it took was for him to throw 4 touchdowns and get a massive win in a season that is completely lost. But anyway, it's good to see for him. I think Jamar Chase goes ballistic. Chase Brown probably goes absolutely nuclear again, probably scores multiple touchdowns. But Michael Carter is probably going to be a lot of name that people are picking up off waivers this week. Mav, how do you feel about starting him against the Bengals if you had to?
I'd fire him up. I'd probably fire up all the players in this game, to be honest with you. It's one of those high-scoring affairs. So, if you had to, RB2 or a flex player or whatever, I'm happy to fire him up.
We could probably move it on there with this high of a total and with how poor the defenses are. Have confidence in all of those guys. Jags taking on the Colts in a divisional matchup up next. Jags just over or under a touchdown favorite. Over under is at 47.5. I just want to quickly see. I think the Colts, they're not fully eliminated yet, but if they lose this one, it will definitely be dust. But Jags playing for that number 1 seed in the AFC. In Indy, in a dome. Colts defense could not stop anything this week. Maybe the rushing attack a little bit, but besides that, all the receivers for the Jags, you could probably start. BTJ, don't mind him for a bounce back for this week. Parker Washington went ballistic in that game, just thanks to the softer coverages. But Secko, Jags up against the Colts. I mean, the only real question, or you're still going to start him, but Jonathan Taylor against a tough Jags run defense, and you'd probably think it's Riley Leonard in this game now. And I'm not too sure if Phillip Rivers, I mean, they kind of hooked him at the back end. Maybe they're just kind of going to throw in the towel on the season. But how do you feel about this game on either side of the ball?
Yeah, I bloody hope not. Yeah, I don't want Ryan Leonard anywhere near my Jonathan Taylor if I can avoid it. But yeah, look, I'm not as sold on it as Troy Aikman seemed to be today. That Phil Rivers' job is done and he'll go back to his 408 kids at home. I think he committed to the season. He'll play out. It's 2 more games. Like, what's the difference? And it's divisional, so he's love for the coach for whatever reason that exists. He'll want to put the best foot forward for that. But yeah, I think we saw he made Alec Pierce look great. The Jags have been really good, but RJ Harvey and Jaleel McLaughlin combined for over 7 yards a carry on the weekend. So it's not, I don't think it's all doom and gloom for JT unless Riley Leonard plays, in which case it definitely is. Jags are great. At the moment, they're coached really well. Trevor Lawrence finally got his coach that he needed to make him a good quarterback after Doug Peterson and Urban Meyer and a whole bunch of recycled junk that had been fired previously. So probably goes to show you that it's better to have someone who's on the up rather than plateauing or on the down for a young quarterback. But yeah, it's good to see. I think everyone's startable. Colts look terrible on defense. So even Etienne, I think he gets most of his job done in the passing game anyway. So I think start them all up with confidence, including Brenton Strange.
Love that there in a dome too. We love to see it. Moving on, another divisional matchup, the Pats taking on the Jets in New York. Pats are just under 2 touchdown favorites. 43 is the over-under in this game. Probably not going to see Travion Henderson, so I think Ramondre Stevenson could go absolutely ballistic in this game to that backfield to himself. Drake May is going to do it. Drake May does. Stephon Diggs, we saw him have a bit of a resurgence after a couple of down weeks in that game there. But on the Jets, can't really start anybody. It's been like that for the last couple of weeks, and I don't think that'll improve. But how do you feel about this one, Mav?
Well, it's a great call. I mean, I think the Pats, obviously Diggs, Ramondre, Drake May, obviously starters, I think, personally. The real question is what you do with Breece Hall at this point in time. Now, he's getting a lot of work, sure. The Pats' run defense is pretty good. So what do you do? Do you have better options? Do you fire up Michael Carter instead of Breece Hall? Do you sort of lean on another sort of fringe RB instead? There's options out there, I suppose. And I would look to bench Breece Hall this week if I had to. I think he's capped at about 10 points maybe, unless he might run one in for a touchdown. I think he's had 2 touchdowns for the whole year. I think he's had not many. It wouldn't be more than 4 or 5, I reckon, top of my head. So, I think that if you have a chance to bench Breece Hall, I think you have to do it. And generally speaking, if you're in week 17 of the fantasy playoff finals, I don't think you'd have Breece Hall anyway. He's been a bit of a dud for the most part. So I doubt if you've made it this far, I doubt you have Breece Hall. So, but if you have him, bench him, I reckon.
I'm the same. I think I would play Michael Carter over Breece Hall, and we were hopeful that Breece might see some more receiving work, but only 3 targets in a game where they were behind for a lot of it. Not great to see. Hopefully he's on and off to a better team next year. Moving on,
He's He's had 3 touchdowns on the year, so that was less than
It's
what
been
I thought.
poor.
Yeah.
It's been very, very poor for Brees Hall. Moving on, another gross game on paper. The Saints taking on the Titans. Saints just under a field goal favorite. 39.5 is the over-under. For the Saints, you'd feel pretty good about just about all of them. I don't think the running backs you can really play. I invested heavily in starting Audric Estime this week, and that was to my own demise. Taysom Hill was the running back that you needed here. He also gave you some receiving work. But really, outside of that, I mean, Chris Olave, Juwan Johnson, Tyler Shuck. It's probably about it on the Titans. Tony Pollard is probably the only one. Or Secko, for you, are you just sitting everybody on the Titans at this point?
Yeah, the Saints have been a lot better than they were, and as a defense, they've been solid. I just can't trust anyone. If you're in championship week, if you've got Titans still there, just keep them where you've had them probably all season, which has got you all this way by not ever relying on their points.
Moving on, another divisional game, which I think could be a little bit of an upset. It will Steelers taking on the Browns in Cleveland. Steelers are 4-point favorites, 34 over under there, so very, very low scoring. I think Myles Garrett breaks the sack record in this game. I think he only needs one, so it's not really a bold call, but I think the Browns could maybe pull off a heist in Cleveland. It's going to be super defense driven here. Who knows? This one could play out either way, and I think Rodgers could be in a little bit of trouble. But then again, Browns defense is kind of semi-checked out at this point, and it could just be Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell running the show. We forgot to mention DK Metcalf has been suspended for 2 games after he didn't punch, but he swung at a spectator. Completely missed, but you'd love to know what the spectator said to warrant that kind of reaction. Mav, how are you feeling about this game here? It's going to be super gross for fantasy. Can you see any bright spots in this game?
Look, there's only Fadden I'd probably really start out this game personally, and probably Jalen Warren is the only other one too. So outside of that, there's no one else there I'm really too interested in. It'll be a low-scoring affair, pretty boring to watch. You won't see much for the red zone, I'd imagine. So, just be very cautious on this one being a low-scoring game.
I reckon if you needed to, Adam Thielen could be a little dart throw with DK Metcalf out. If you are absolutely struggling at wide receiver, he's out there on waivers.
That is
even in dynasty leagues. He was
absolutely struggling.
449 through the air. He was their second lead receiver behind Kenneth Gainwell. So I mean, that short area of the field with Myles Garrett breathing down your neck, he could be looking to get the ball that quick. But it's going to be a gross game. But I just have a feeling that the Browns could pull up an upset in a very dirty game. Moving on, the Seahawks taking on the Panthers in Carolina. The Seahawks are touchdown favorites, 42.5 over under. The Panthers coming off a big upset victory against the Bucs here. If they win against the Seahawks, I think they just outright clinch the division. It doesn't come down to that final game up against the Bucs in Week 18. But Secko, this game for you, I mean, Seahawks, very tough defense across the board. It's very easy for the Seahawks. You're starting JSN. You're starting Sam Darnold if you have to. Kenneth Walker, he gave us a good game last week against a tough Rams defense, which he gave us another good game when they played initially in this year. But how do you feel about the Seahawks? Are you dealing with Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet to go with JSN and Darnold, or are you kind of leaving those guys and maybe going with Rico Dowdle on the other side of the ball in this game?
Rico Dowdle is back into a full committee at the moment, so I wouldn't want to be starting him even at home against the Seahawks. It's one of the longest road trips in football. I do talk about it a lot, but it does matter a lot. Seattle to Carolina is a very, very long trip. It's almost it's the longest. It's like maybe the third or fourth longest in the entire NFL. And yeah, that's an extra couple of days helps them. They played Thursday night football, but I'm expecting an under on the 42.5. I'm expecting it to be a close game. Panthers seem to win these ones. They win a lot of games at home. I haven't looked it up. I was about to look it up and I sort of ran out of time, but I reckon they've only lost 2 or 3 games at home all year at a maximum because they keep beating good teams at home as well. So I feel like this is going to be fairly close in that sort of 2020 sort of range, which they always do. Bryce Young for a good touchdown or so, but hard to trust almost anyone, even Tetaroa, against a good defense. It's hard to trust at the moment. JSN's obviously a trust. And again, Kenneth Walker, I don't know if you can trust him. He had a good game, but for the most part of the year, we were talking about how you can't start either, him or Sharp. So, yeah, it's a frustrating, probably a frustrating game for fantasy and try and avoid, if it tiebreaker, try and avoid Panthers and Seagulls players outside of JSN for me.
Moving on in what should be a much higher scoring affair, the Bucks taking on the Dolphins in Miami. The Bucks are favored by 5.5 points. Over under is set at 46.5. Coming off a tough loss for the Bucks, I mean, they should just absolutely roll through the Dolphins, you'd think. Started just about everybody. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Emeka Egbuka is probably the only question mark that I have. His role definitely has diminished after Big Mike and Godwin has come back into town. Only had 2 targets, caught one of them for 40 yards in their game against the Panthers. And then Bucky Irving, you're going to start him with confidence in what should be a smash matchup. For the Dolphins, Quinn Ewers last week in his first start for the Dolphins gave us 260 passing yards, so not horrid. 2 interceptions, you don't love that, but pure just receiving volume, it's going to be there. But really only Devon Achane, I think he can start on this side of the ball. How do you see this one, Mav? Is it just Achane and then all of the Bucks outside of Egbuka, or do you see it a little bit differently?
I mean, I don't really know how you view Bucky Irving these days. I mean, there's a vulture in the locker room. His name's Sean Tucker. He steals the goal line off Bucky. So I don't even know if you can trust Bucky at this point in time, to be honest with you. This is a green matchup. This is a plus matchup. This should be a really good matchup for really both parties. So A-Chain should get off the hook again, as he's always been getting on. Waddle's an interesting one. Obviously, he's hindered by the QB play there with Ewers. So, if you wanted to go elsewhere, I can understand. And then I think outside of, honestly, Mike Evans is probably the only one I trust in the Bucks at the moment. Outside of that, there's probably not really any other guys I don't really trust. That's including Bucky. So you probably do play Bucky. I hope he, breaks one out for a couple, or 15, 20-yard touchdown or something like that, or sees plenty of passing volume along the way. But outside of that, I really can't trust anyone else out there. There's outside of which is unfortunate because you look at this matchup and you go, Jesus, I'm licking my lips, but that's just how it is.
That's how it is, and I think in this next game, it's going to be very similar. The Giants taking on the Raiders to kick off the later Monday morning slate here, either 7 or 8 a.m., depending whereabouts you are. Giants and the Raiders in Las Vegas. Raiders are favored by 1 point. That's just that home field advantage. 42 over under. In a game where there's really not going to be too much defense, probably start just about all of the key players that I think you'd want to. I mean, for the Raiders, Genty, Bowers, hopefully you don't have to start Geno Smith, but I think he might do okay against the Giants. And on the Giants side of the ball, outside of last week, which was just unfathomable for the Giants play calling with Jackson Dart only throwing the ball for 13 times, but you could probably go back to the well with Jackson Dart. Tyrone Tracy has been solid in a plus matchup. And then it's really just those receivers, Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, Theo Johnson. How do you see this game playing out, Secko? Is there any must-sits in this one, you think?
I agree with you on Jackson Dart. It was one of the bag. I'm actually tossing him versus Goff up this week. I think I'll go with Goff, but I really think Dart's going to have a big game, and they realise that play calling was terrible. Hard to trust any receivers on that side, though. Just not knowing who the one is. Probably Wan'Dale in PPR, and then Raiders is the Raiders. You know who to start. You probably have to start Genty now against the opponent and what he's just done. Same with Bowers, but there's no receivers on start and no Geno.
And another easy follow-up with our next game, the Eagles taking on the Bills. This is going to be one of the better games of the week. At home for Buffalo, Bills are just favored by just under a field goal. 43.5 is the over-under set at this game here. It's going to be cold. It's going to be snowy in Buffalo. I think this could be a big running back day, but given how high-powered these offenses can be, could be a little bit of a shootout down the stretch with both teams looking to win here. How do you feel, Mav, about this one? Bills definitely needing to win more so than the Eagles. They've clinched their division, but Is there anyone here that you're looking to sit? I mean, Devonta and AJ Brown, that's probably the area where has been the most questionable outside of the Bills wide receivers. So how do you feel about those guys heading into this week?
Look, to be honest with you, it's going to be a good matchup, good game in store for us, I think. But like outside of Josh Allen and James Cook, obviously that's the only two players I can trust of the Bills. I mean, Kincaid had a donut last week, so I still can't trust him in any way, shape, or form. In any format of all time with fantasy, he's just so up and down. AJ Brown, Saquon, probably, and Hurts, probably the guys that I'd really trust as well. And Saquon, I don't know, put an asterisk next to it. Maybe he's touchdown dependent, but you can't really trust him either. Devonta Smith's been extremely up and down. I can't remember his last good game, to be honest with you. It probably hasn't been this month. So maybe he gives us one at the end of the month to hold us to one good game a month. But yeah, outside of that, I mean, AJ Brown's been really good, been back in the offense now, and outside of that, I truly can't trust anyone in these two squads. Despite them being good squads, they are good squads. They'll be at the pointy end, you think, at the end of the year, but fantasy, they don't really give you a lot at the moment, to be honest with you. Any consistency anyway.
I think Dallas Goedert is probably one that I'd be looking to sit in this game. The Bills, outside of last week against Fana Jr., they've been pretty solid against tight ends. I'd be looking elsewhere in that regard there. Moving on to Sunday Night Football to end the slate for the Monday. Bears taking on the 49ers in San Fran. 49ers are a field goal favorite. Nice, juicy over-under at 51 here. And right, nice and easy. I think just about everybody you can play in this game. 49ers defense is pretty horrid. Bears defense is average. Both teams looking for the win in this game here. We hope George Kittle starts because that's really going to lift everything. Even the running game for CMC, we know just how much of an impact George Kittle has when he's blocking and opening up lanes for CMC there. But how do you feel about this one, Secko? Is there any players? I mean, Roma Dunze probably won't start for the Bears. We might have Luther Burden back to throw in the mix. But how do you feel about this game against the Bears and 49ers?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a bonanza. I'm hoping it is anyway. The Niners are becoming that prototypical fantasy team, great on offense and terrible on defense and allow points, which we love. And I think both running backs can be started against them. Even though they were better tonight or today against Jonathan Taylor, they're not really haven't been great against running backs. And I think those two as a tandem can do really well against them. We'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens with the receiving core. I mean, DJ Moore's been good in relief of Adunze and Burden. I think Burden's back, and we'll see what the split's there. But you can start them all. You can start everyone on the 49ers side because they're just rolling at the moment. I think they're actually my pick to win the entire thing this year.
Wait and see how that one plays out. I think I'd still prefer your Rams over the Niners. They're Secko, and the Rams do close out the slate for week 17, the championship week, second last week of the year. On the Monday Night Football, Tuesday, lunchtime here for us in Australia. The Rams taking on the Falcons in Atlanta. The Rams are 8-point favorites, and the over-under is set at just under 50 at 49.5. Probably start just about everybody on this game too. I mean, Mav, looking at this one, Drake London, 1 week removed from that injury. Cole Pitts is Cole Pitts. We know what he is. If London can perform, that definitely does hamper Cole Pitts in that regard. Bijan, it's a tough running matchup, but he's been their leading receiver for the last handful of weeks outside of that Cole Pitts game against the Bucks. And for the Rams, Puka absolutely lights out, especially without Devontae. Stafford's on a tear, still in the MVP race. Colby Parkinson let us down this week. I'm not too sure if I could dip back into that well after Terrence Ferguson came out and performed. But how do you see this game playing out as we close out week 17?
I reckon Kyle Pitts has got one big present for us for Christmas. And I reckon it's a big donut coming our way. I think it's the dud game for Kyle Pitts that we know of. When you truly need him the most, he comes out and gives us a really dud score. So I've got a feeling that's going to happen.
Imagine if you're in the championship game and you're going into Monday Night Football and you need 3 points from Kyle Pitts and you're watching the entire game just waiting for any catch to happen and it never comes.
It could. That very well could happen. So I feel as though he's got something really bad for us coming in. And yeah, as you said, it's the last game of fantasy football season. So yeah, you really don't want to be relying on that. But anyway, outside of that, I mean, it should be pretty good areas for most players that are fantasy relevant. I think you'd start them all really. So, I mean, the Rams are pretty good defensively, but again, the last few weeks they have shown a few cracks here and there. So, but yeah, I'd fire them all up and, with fairly good confidence. I mean, London and Bijan obviously being their two best players on the Falcon side, and you start them every week. Puka. I mean, Puka could score 30 or 40 points in this game again. There's true upside there in this matchup for him. So Stafford's got something to play for. They've got something to play for still, the Rams, and I think that, Puka's going to go off.
In a dome this time of the year too, this could just be absolute fantasy goodness for the back end of the week. But best of luck to everybody in their championship week matchups. Hopefully, you've gotten this far and you just need a little bit more luck to go your way to produce the goods. Guys, as we close this out, we may or may not have a show next week, just depending on, it's Christmas this time of the year. It's always busy. It's always hectic trying to get things involved. If not, we will be back in the new year just to put a bow on everything the year that was, and we'll probably look into more dynasty content. That's what's shaping up. We're ramping up to April in that rookie draft. We've got plenty more to come. We're an all year round show, which is the best part. But Secko, final thoughts as we close out for you, as we look ahead to week 17, and then to you as well, Mav.
Yeah, mate, it's good to get to this stage. It's been great going on the ride with you two boys, and all the people out there listening. It's been great. The inclusion of SuperCoach into our lives has been a bumpy ride, and hopefully they're smoothed out a few things for next year. But it's been a good little addition to our normal routine of traditional fantasy. So now look, pumped. 2 more weeks of SuperCoach, 1 more week of fantasy. Hopefully he's still alive in at least one leg. I've got 2. I've got a dynasty and my home leg. It's been going for 15 years maybe. Going for my 4th championship. So with a bit of luck, Goff and Amon-Ra have what they had. Or Goff did what he did on the weekend, and Amon-Ra is the one he hits up, and should be enough with JSN. Bring it home later in the week.
Mav?
Yeah, So I've got a couple of finals coming up. Hopefully, this is a good time of the year to cash in on some funds when you're got some fund investors in the league. So it's always a good time to get some money back into the kitty. But all in all, it's been a fantastic season. Really enjoyed the most part of the year. Injuries aside and stuff like that, you can't help obviously that, but the tilts you have throughout the year, the trade requests, the good, the highs, the lows. That's just the NFL fantasy season. So, have a good Christmas to all. Hopefully, it's a fantastic day, and we'll be either back next week or early in the new year. So, looking forward to it.
It's a great point. Merry Christmas to all. Completely forgot we are 2 days away from Christmas, so enjoy that. Enjoy that time with your families, and of course, if you are looking for time to look at your leagues or go through the news, whenever those in-laws start chiming in, that's always when I clock out. So no, guys, thanks for tuning in for the show. Best of luck with your championship week in week 17 and the final 2 weeks of SuperCoach, and we'll be back later on. Thanks again.
See ya.
Merry Christmas. Goodbye.